Our second week of the class that we are doing right now, which is based on the book, You Are the Placebo, Making Your Mind Matter. And so if you weren't here last week, what we talked about, part of what we talked about was about what the book is about. And it is really about, the whole book is about the power of our minds to create healing in our bodies through our consciousness. And the way that we are, or the reason that we are able to heal our bodies, is because we are immersed in this infinite field of possibilities, in this field of pure potentiality. And we access that field through our thinking, through our consciousness, through our acceptance, through our belief, and through our expectancy. And so I told the story. The reason that Dr. Joe Dispenza wrote this book is because in 1987, he was hit by an SUV and broke two vertebrae in his back. And the doctors told him that he would never walk again, and that he would need to have two metal rods put on either side of his spine just so that he would be able to sit up. He did not buy into that medical model. He decided that he was going to heal his body through his consciousness, and heal he did. And so today he walks, yes, and runs, and has written 7 books and lectures and teaches all about the power of our minds to heal our bodies. And not just the power of our minds to heal our bodies, but the power of our minds to heal our lives, to change our lives, to create our lives. And so at the end of my talk last week, Leslie Spann's friend is with her, Lorena, and she said to me after service, "That's my story." Lorena, raise your hand, in this room some years ago was hit by a truck and had 2 vertebrae broken, as well as her clavicle and both of her legs. And the doctors told her she would never walk again. And she said she would not buy that. She would not believe that. She believed that she would walk again, and she was determined to walk again. And so 8 months later, she was walking. And 1 year later, she walked into that doctor's office. That doctor that told her she would never walk again walked in there, and he told her, "If I didn't believe in God, this right here is a reason to believe in God. There has to be a God," the fact that she was walking again. And so I have a question to you. So let's say that you got in an accident and the doctors told you that you would never walk again. Would you buy it? Would you accept it? Or would you fight with everything that you had within you to not make that true? It's kind of a hard question. And it's kind of very revealing about how we think and what we believe. And I have a second question for you. If you had an accident and the doctors told you that you would walk again, but it was going to be a lot of hard work and a long road, would that make it easier for you to walk again? And would you do the hard work and the long road? Well, my goodness, if you could do that, you can change anything in your life, because everything else is a piece of cake after that one. And so the title of my talk today is that you behind those foster grants? And what I'm talking about is that lens through which we view life, that lens through which we view life and things in our life, the lens through which we view ourselves and possibilities. All of those, that lens determines what we experience in our lives and what we create in our lives. It determines the choices that we make, and all of that determines our life. And so I'm talking about also 3 particular things that create that lens: the conditions that we've already experienced, our expectations, and the meaning that we give things that happen in our life. And so I'll talk about those 3 things today. And so I know for every single one of us in this room that we have things that we would like to experience in our lives that we are not yet experiencing, whether that is greater health or more success in some particular relationship, or even having a relationship, or maybe it's having a different career, or greater peace with your neighbors, or greater financial abundance in your life. Whatever it is, everyone in this room has something that they would like to create and have an experience in their life. And so the problem is so often the lens through which we are looking at life and ourselves and the possibilities of life is a lens that does not support us in creating that life. One is that lens is a lens of past conditioning. That means that we think just because we've experienced something in a particular way in our life back there, that we are going to experience it the same way, or that things are going to be the same as they were because that's what's happened before. That would be, though, like me thinking as a kid I was never able to throw a ball, so I will never be able to throw a ball in my life. If I was determined and made that choice, of course you all know I could throw a ball. It would be like we tell ourselves, I have had a bad relationship, and therefore we project that onto the future and think that every single relationship from here on out is going to be bad also. Or that men are this way, or that women are this way, or whatever that past experience is that told you. And there was a story in the book, and I just love it, such a perfect example that he gave that is about giving a speech. Or let's say that you gave a speech one time in your life, the first time you ever gave a speech, and you forgot your lines. And the audience started laughing. And the more they laughed, the more flustered you got, and you couldn't remember them even more because you started to panic. It would be like then projecting that onto the future, knowing every single time that you gave a speech in the future that that's exactly what was going to happen. Or deciding that that meant you're no good at speech giving and therefore you won't do it. And therefore you have anxiety and don't want to give speeches and have all this stuff wrapped up around it. But that's because of the conditioning of your past. Or another thing is sometimes we're just simply told that things are a certain way. Like girls can't be race car drivers, or girls can't be astronauts or the president of the United States, or men or dads can't stay home and take care of their kids. Or, like I said, that speech, or you've told yourself, this is the conclusion that you've drawn because of that. You can't do this. But it's about a belief that you hold because of a past experience, whether it's something you've done in your life or something that someone told you. But the thing is, the future is never limited by the past. The future is not a repeat of your past. We live in a field of infinite potential. We live in a field of all possibilities. Everything is available to us now. It's ours for the taking, but we have to believe that we can have it in order to even try. I have to believe that I can actually throw the ball before I even try throwing it. You have to believe that you can get up there and do a successful speech in order to even get up there and do it. So it's about changing our beliefs. And so that second thing then that creates that lens that either enables us to create the life that we want or keeps us from creating the life that we want is our expectations. The biggest one is having an expectation that things will not work out. But like I said, the past is not the future. The past is not your current moment. Principle is not bound by precedence. The infinite is not bound by anything that has happened in the past. It's not limited by anything that has happened in the past. That infinite nature of the universe isn't bound. If it was, we would still be living in caves and still foraging for food. The past doesn't get projected into the future. So leave the past behind and leave those past beliefs that you know don't support you behind as well. Ernest Holmes says, the world is deluded, blind, and shackled. And by what? By its own acceptance of negative thought. It lies bound in chains of its own forging. Mind, which is our greatest gift, has been made our jailer, and we whimper in a misery entirely of our own creation. Bondage exists nowhere in the universe except in the human mind. Freedom is ours at the precise moment we recognize our liberty and we step forth in freedom. Freedom is ours the moment we decide and choose and believe and sing freedom. And so our faith in that boundless good, our faith in that infinite potential of the universe opens us up to possibilities that would not exist for us if we did not believe that they existed for us. It opens us up to new possibilities. And so in this book, You Are the Placebo, it is filled with stories about the role of our belief and our expectations, and how our belief and expectations are the very foundation of how the placebo effect works in the first place. We believe the pill is going to work, and therefore the pill works. That's how the placebo effect works. And so expectations then actually create a really big role in our lives. What we expect to happen, what we expect of ourselves, what we expect of life, and even what other people expect of us. Because what we expect to happen, we look for, and we anticipate, and we get excited about. Think about it. If you expect that you're going on vacation, you start getting excited about it ahead of time. You start anticipating what it is that you're going to do. You start imagining how fun it's going to be and the things that you're going to see. You start fantasizing and create this whole built-up thing long before you get on the vacation. And you have lots of feelings about how fun it's going to be or whatever. Same thing if you have a friend that's going to come visit. If you're anticipating that visit, you start getting excited about seeing your friend that you haven't seen in a long time. And same thing, imagining how it's going to be and what's going to happen. Or on the other hand, say that you are anticipating going to the dentist. You start feeling dread and, oh my goodness, what if I'm going to have that tooth pulled? Or what if they're going to drill in my mouth? Or you have the upcoming speech and you start feeling that dread. But I think it's safe to say that when we anticipate something, we start building an emotional reaction around it. Emotions that are attached to it. Building an emotional charge. And so when we learn how to do treatment, Ernest Holmes talks about that feeling is the fire that makes the treatment work. Those feelings that we create in our anticipation are part of what creates that manifestation, how we create by feeling the feelings of what it's going to be like. And so one of the elements then of how we create things in our life is out of our expectations. Like I said, our expectations of the world, of ourselves, of other people, what people expect of us, all of those things influence our lives. And so you may have heard this because it's been around since the 60s, but it's a story about expectations, how when other people expect something from someone and what that does. And so in the 1960s, Rosenthal and his colleagues tested every kid in a school. They used a test that pretended to be a test that would predict academic blooming. Then they gave each teacher the names of a handful of children from their classroom that were just on the cusp of a marked intellectual growth. These kids were labeled bloomers. The researchers claimed that the results of the test revealed that those kids they would bloom the following year. In reality, though, the names of the, quote, bloomers were randomly taken out of a hat. The bloomers did not know that the teachers were holding high expectations of them, and the teachers were told not to tell the children either, and they didn't. And so the children never knew. The bloomers weren't any smarter than their peers. The difference was only in the mind of the teachers. And so what happened? A year later, the kids were tested again, and they found that the bloomers, in fact, showed greater intellectual gains than any of the other kids. The kids actually got smarter when they were expected to get smarter by their teachers. The kids were transformed by their teachers' expectations. That says to me also then, when we expect something from the people in our lives, it changes the way that they respond to us. When we expect something different at our place of work or with our neighbors or something different to happen in our life, it changes things out there, not just in here. And so there was a story in the book also that I'd like to share with you. that is about the effect of expectations and of belief. And it says, in one experiment, Benedetti gave study subjects the drug sumatriptan to stimulate growth hormones and inhibit cortisol secretion. And then, without the patient's knowledge, he replaced the drug with a placebo. So they'd been taking a medication, and then at some point, they didn't know it, that medication was switched to a sugar pill. He found that the patient's brain scans continued to light up in the same places that were getting the sumatriptan. This was proof that the brain indeed produced the same substance, in this case, the growth hormone on its own. What they also found in the studies, it created the same side effects. When someone had nausea from taking a particular medication, they continued to have the nausea. When a side effect from a medication was shallow breathing, they continued to have the shallow breathing. Not just the positive expectation, but the negative expectation as well was what happened for them. And so, like I said, if others expect something from us, it brings that forward. If we expect something from within us, we bring that forward. The expectations create the shift. I love it. It's like a quote from Henry Ford when he says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. It's our expectation. So when we have an expectation, especially that has a strong emotional component to it, then it is even stronger in creating what it is that we want. Becomes a powerful cause. And so in this book and in this philosophy, then, one of the tools that we use and that he gives us is using imagery. Imagining what it is that you want to experience in your life. Seeing yourself doing it, but also feeling the feelings of what it's going to be like. What are you going to feel like when you're doing this? How is your life going to be different? And feel it. What different choices are you going to be making? And feel what it feels like. And to allow yourself to get excited about feeling it. To change your feelings in your inner world is part of the creative process. And so we've been doing this meditation in class and letting go of what you don't want and embodying and seeing yourself doing what you do want. And so one of the things that I'm letting go of is getting anxious over, say, doing new things. And so instead of anxious, my affirmation and what I'm moving into is trusting the moment, that I have exactly what I need in this moment. And so doing that meditation, feeling the feelings, it's been amazing. I feel this huge sense of relief. Oh my gosh, I don't have to do this anymore. It's such a relief. But what's interesting is not just am I imagining it when I'm sitting and doing the meditation, but I keep bringing to mind and repeating, I trust the moment. And when I do that, I keep getting that same sense of relief in my body. And so I'm actually able to just pull up the relief also and affirm that I trust in this moment. All of that is changing my consciousness. That's one of the ways that we change our consciousness. And so we do that by seeing and feeling, and then by expecting the best. Expecting our outcome, and expecting, even if it doesn't turn out exactly like that, to expect the best to come forward. So I have another reading. Thank goodness I only have two today. It says, this is amazing. 2 recent studies from the University of Toledo perhaps shed the best light on how the mind alone can determine what someone perceives and experiences. For each study, researchers divided a group of healthy volunteers into 2 categories, optimists and pessimists. According to how the volunteers answered questions on a diagnostic questionnaire. In the first study, they gave the subjects a placebo, but told them it was a drug that would make them feel unwell. The pessimists had a stronger negative reaction to the pill than the optimists. In the second study, the researchers gave the subject a placebo as well, but told them that it would help them sleep better. The optimists reported much better sleep than the pessimists. So, the optimists were more likely to respond positively to a suggestion that something would make them feel better because they were primed to hope for the best possible scenario. And the pessimists were more likely to respond negatively to a suggestion that something would make them feel worse because they consciously or unconsciously expected the worst potential outcome. Is that amazing? So we talk about the power of positive thinking, the power of optimistic thinking, the power of expecting the best to happen. And so that means then knowing that we live in this infinite potentiality and expecting the best enables us to create and do and be and have the things that we want with much more success. And so the last and third element that I'm talking about that impacts how we create our lives or how we don't create our lives is how we name things, what we call things, how we define them, the meaning that we give to things. So that example of giving the speech and forgetting your lines, you could name it or have it mean that you stumbled or that this was your first speech and it's going to take more practice. But what mostly we do, like the pessimists, instead we make it mean, I'm not good at giving speeches, or I can't do this. And then we live out of that lens, out of that perspective for the rest of our lives. Instead of a one-time event, we make it the whole of everything. And so I have to share a story with you. Yvonne McLaughlin, that is one of our community members, is taking class now, but the last class that we took was called Spiritual Fitness. And part of that class was looking at 8 different aspects of your life and then rating yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 how well you're doing in each one of those aspects. And she was really happy. She got between 8s and 10s on everything except health. And out of that, she set an intention to work on her health and to be healthier and to do things that created more health. And out of that, one of the things that she did was she started eating healthier foods. Yvonne has lost 57 pounds. And what's more amazing than that, I've been watching her, is it's been easy. This has not been difficult. She's happy with the food choices she's making. She talks about how delicious this food is and how wonderful it is. She's having a good time doing this because the meaning that she gave it is getting healthy. The meaning that she gave it is taking care of herself, not dieting or losing weight. The meaning that we give things determines how we experience them. I was talking with Ray this morning about that game, A Barrel of Monkeys. You remember how you connect one monkey to the next one, and then the second one connects to the third one, and the fourth one. He didn't know about the game, so I was explaining it to him, and he goes, why do we do those things to ourselves? Why do we create stress within ourselves by doing games where it's hard, and if you knock one off, the whole thing falls apart? Because the meaning that we give it, the meaning of playing a barrel of monkeys and that stress is entirely different than the meaning we give the stress from doing a speech and people laughing at us. So the meaning is part of what determines our experience and then what we do in the future. And so a meaning that I carry with me all the time is that life is for me. And what happens then is that meaning gets placed on top of things when something difficult happens in my life, when I go through something that is really challenging. And that means then, even when it is uncomfortable, that I know somehow it's for me. It's for my expansion. It's for my growth. It's for me living a fuller life somehow. And so I remember years ago going through a surprise breakup. I was totally blindsided. I'd been in a relationship for 4 years, and I was devastated and hysterical. And at the time, I was going to therapy, and so I called my therapist, and she came in on her day off for an emergency session. I was crying and sobbing and a wreck and didn't even know what to do with myself. And then when I came back to see her for my next appointment that was like 10 days later, she could not believe how well I was doing. I was doing really well because I believed that life is for me. And so that meant the meaning of that breakup was somehow that it was for me, that it was for my thriving. And so then that means that it behooves us to look at the meaning that we are placing on top of things. And does that meaning support us in thriving? Does it support us in living our best life? Does it support us in living in joy and exuberance? Or does it pull us down? Does it make us feel less than? Does it make us afraid and not live a fantastic life? And so my invitation to you this week is, one, to know that principle is not bound by precedent. That this infinite universe is never bound by something that has happened in your past. It is never bound out of a belief that somebody else told you that this is how things are. You live in a universe that is for your thriving. You live in a universe that supports your thriving. And the fuller, the greater experience your experience of life is, the greater the divine is getting to express in you and through you. Do you get that? The fuller our experience of life, the more fully that presence is expressing. We block it or open ourselves up to allow it to express through us by our beliefs and our expectations and how we name things. And so expect the best. Know that life is conspiring for your good. Believe that. Try that one on. And then ask yourself if how you're naming something, whether it's from your past or from the current moment, ask yourself, is the way you're naming it supportive? Is it loving towards yourself? Is it serving your thriving? Is it serving the divine within you and the divine all around you? And if it's not, redefine it so that it is. And as a result of doing those things, you will absolutely be having this expanded sense of life. A greater joy, a greater flexibility, greater freedom, open to that boundless good of the universe. And so blessings to each and every single one of you on this path of self-discovery and of discovering that infinite potential that lives within you and that is all around you, cheering you on all of the time. Blessings to all of you. And so I invite you to join me in a spiritual mind treatment. Oh, and so we just breathe into this moment, recognizing that in the fullness of this moment is all that we could ever possibly need. For that infinite one is right here. That infinite presence, that infinite power, that infinite life, that infinite potentiality is that thing that we name God, the divine spirit, Buddha mind, Allah, God, all those names. We're speaking of this one life, this one love, this one boundless good, this one creative force of the universe that fills all of time and all of space with its beingness. That presence that expresses itself in and through and around every single thing that exists. Every tree and every plant and every person and animal, every home, every heart. This presence is fully present everywhere. And so today we open ourselves to that infinite one that is constantly and endlessly pouring itself forth as the all. And so today we open ourselves to love. We open ourselves to peace. We open ourselves to wisdom and to glory and to magnificence and to joy, knowing that heaven is being poured out right now and into our lives in such a magnificent way. And so right now, each and every one of us, we let go of, release, and just let slide down to the floor everything that doesn't serve us. And it slides down and just becomes a puddle. and disappears into the nothingness from whence it came. For there is no law to support that which is not the truth. There is no law to support limitation or not enoughness or lack of any sort. And we step into the light of the infinite. Hear how magnificent this is, to be living this life of that infinite one, filled with its beauty and its love and its abundance of good. And so I claim good in every shape and form for every one of us in this room, knowing that this is the truth of the divine. And so today we live this life of good. We embody good. We express and share good everywhere we go, and we are filled. And so it is with that that I give thanks. And I also speak this word right now for anyone in this world who has been experiencing natural disasters, for the people of Puerto Rico and of Florida and of Texas and of the Caribbean and everywhere across this world, the earthquake in Mexico, all across this world, wherever there is struggle and wherever there is strife, right now the activity of God is unfolding itself as the meeting of every need, as peace, as coming through the hands of others as support and help, as wisdom that guides each and every single worker and volunteer to do what needs to be done and bring what needs to be brought. And so I just recognize that it is that the activity of the divine is happening right now in every single one of those situations as a boundless good. That healing is happening, that hands and hearts are coming together, and that is creating an amazing healing in this world. Good abounds, and it is happening now. And so I release this prayer absolutely knowing that this is the truth. And in my acceptance, I make it so. And so we accept it, and we claim it, and we allow it to be. And so it is.